Hey everybody, and welcome to the Bluegrass Soccer Academy. My name is Charlie Hamilton, this is Chris Dunham, and we will be your host as always. Looking forward to today's episode. We have released an episode, I hope everybody has gotten a chance to go and listen to it, about the rule changes that we wanted to see in the game of soccer. We each kind of came up with our 5 that we would like to see, whether we thought that the game of soccer just needed it would make the game of soccer a little more enticing, but we each kind of broke down what we wanted to see with those. And that got us to thinking, that led us to today's episode. We're going to have a little fun with. I think whether you are a player, whether you are a coach, or whether you are a parent that's listening in, you're going to be able to follow along and hopefully get a few laughs out of this episode, and also hopefully think, oh, I should maybe stop doing that.
Yeah, I think, number one, having fun with this, not just here on this podcast, but on the field, as a player, as a coach, even as a parent, it's about having fun. If you're not loving what you're doing, why are you doing it to begin with? So, like you said, today's episode, let's have a little fun with this, but we're going to get a direction towards players and parents to get a coach's perspective of things that drive us nuts, that players do either in games, in practices, or somewhere in between. So, again, let's have a little fun with this. We've got our top 5 things that players do that drive us crazy as coaches. And Mr. Hamilton, why don't you go first? What's your number 1 here?
All right, my number 1, again, we've talked about having fun with this and things like that. My number 1 is actually a little more on the serious side. I know we have both had issues with it, but it is when players hide injuries from us, whether it is a minor strain, I'm starting to feel a little pull in my hamstring, or as serious as a concussion. As serious as I have had a headache since last night's practice and I'm just not feeling good. Not to mention, not even to get into the medical side of things and how, detrimental that could be to your game going forward. But even just, we aren't mind readers, and we definitely want what's best for our athletes, for our players. This isn't just a soccer conversation, I would imagine. But when you feel, and especially at a young age, when you feel that tightness in a muscle, or you have that lingering headache that won't go away, or the pull in your lower back, or whatever it is, that just, hey, I'm not right, I don't feel normal, you got to let us know.
Yeah, I think this is a big issue, more so in the high school level, where they know when there's time out, they're probably going to lose some playing time. Yeah. But if you're not bringing it up, you could possibly extend the time that you're going to be out, either by injuring it even further or causing an injury in another part of your body. As you discussed here, just concussions. That is a worldwide type of situation now where it's gaining more notoriety. And again, high school kids mainly being the more prone to hide this. And that's at an age where your future could be more affected by hiding it. So I think this is a big one here. Again, like you said, much more serious. And I think kids need to understand that you have a life to live. And sometimes just get it taken care of. There's more game to play down the road.
Well, and looking at it from the sport side of things, I think you bring up a great point where a lot of times athletes aren't going to be up front because they don't want to lose that playing time. We can talk about, we can put any spin on it we want, but playing time is important to athletes. Playing time is important to mamas and daddies, and we understand that. We get that. And so I do think a lot of it comes back to that. If I'm hurt, he's not going to play me. But when you look at it that way, if you're hurt and it's affecting your play on the field and I don't know you're hurt, well, that's going to limit your playing time even more. Because now I'm thinking, okay, second game in a row and Dunham's not getting the job done, I got to pull him. And then I pull you, and then now you say, well, my hamstring's been bothering me, coach. Well, now we have a whole other problem. Now your play has dropped because you've been lying to me about being hurt. And so I think bringing up that playing time aspect of it is a really good point by you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point.
All right, what is your number one?
Yeah, my number one is truly my number one. That I don't care if I'm coaching 4-year-olds or college age. Players chatting when the coach is speaking. And I'm not talking about we're in a group before practice, when practice is over, we're just kind of goofing around. I'm talking about I'm giving instruction, explaining a drill or correcting a drill or giving some kind of demonstration, and I got 2 players whispering in the background. You want to drive me up a wall from 0 to 100, that's probably going to do it. And I've caught many players in the past doing it, and usually I make the whole team run if I catch 2 players chatting. So that's my biggest pet peeve overall is please just listen to what I'm giving instruction to, because if I see you're chatting and I've asked you what I just said and you don't know, it's going to be a long day for you.
Well, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the chatting you're talking about is the, hey, what are we going to do after this game? Hey, where are we going to eat?
Absolutely.
You know, if
not soccer-related discussions in the background.
Right.
Yes.
Like if I'm at halftime of a game and I am addressing the team about, hey, we're going to change a formation, or hey, we're going to do this with our striker to try to create more opportunities, and I see my center back talking to my left wing saying, hey, you got to pull back in that, and I can tell that they're having that conversation that is related to the game, fine. But you're right, it is those conversations when, we're trying to get better or we're trying to win a game, and those conversations are off task, they're not focused, they're not geared in.
Yes.
That is absolutely frustrating. And I think what those 2 athletes that are talking off to the side don't understand that, we're the ones that get angry and get frustrated, but a lot of their teammates are feeling the same way.
It's interesting because when I catch them, and I send the whole team running and not just those 2, I watch every member of the team yell at those 2 kids or players, whatever age group that they are, saying, stop talking, be quiet, you're going to keep getting us in trouble. And you can tell the team exactly what I want.
Right, absolutely.
Using the peer pressure to say, hey, get back on track. Let's not have a bad practice here.
Yeah, absolutely. My next one is probably, if we were doing a hierarchy or ranking, this probably should have been my number one. It has become a major issue with me since I moved to the club side of things. I don't know why that is. I don't necessarily get the question more, but when we're in a game and I'm locked in and, we get the motion going and 12, 13 minutes into the game, it's time to make a change. And I say, hey, Dunham, go get Charlie, pull him off, give him a break. And then you look at me and you go, well, what is he playing? That just runs all over me, because now my brain goes, what have you been doing the past 13 minutes behind my back? Because clearly you haven't been engaged in the game.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, this is all levels.
Right.
That we've encountered this. High school level, multiple times, I'll say, hey, player X, go in for player Y. Oh, what? Where are they at? Are they left? No, they're in the center. Thanks for paying attention. Yeah. So now you, without realizing it, have maybe think, should you even be going in? Because do you even know what's going on right now?
Yeah. Are you locked in on what we're doing? Or, and this can even go back to your number one. Clearly you're having different conversations behind me.
Right.
And I've turned around it multiple times and said, hey, let's focus on what we're doing here.
Right.
It bothers me so much that I've even implemented my rules. And guys, I coach, those of you listening, I coach 2011 girls. So they are 12 years old. And they know in a game, if I look at them and say, hey, go get Emily, and they say, where is Emily playing? They don't go in the game until they can come back up to me and go, oh, hey, Emily's playing left wing. I know now. They just know.
I think it's a good thing to do there, setting that, rule there, because they're going to learn real quick, if I'm not paying attention, I'm not playing. And then they go tell mom and dad, I'm not playing, and then mom and dad come to you and say, well, we have a rule. They know what the rule is. If they're not going to pay attention to the game, well, there you go. You already know what's going on.
Absolutely. And it has helped. Just implementing that rule has helped. And again, it's not that we don't ever have any fun. It's not that there's not ever any goofing off. But, in that moment of a game situation, we need you as coaches locked in, ready to play some soccer. And when the game has been going on for, like we said, 12, 13 minutes, or even in the second half, and I go to put you in the game, it just shows me where your mindset is. It shows me that you're not locked in, you're not ready to play soccer.
It's a huge deal, and I agree 100%. So my number 2 here somewhat follows up to my number 1. It's goofing off or not taking a drill seriously. And let me be a little more direct here. I like having kids who are enjoying practice. I don't want them to feel stressed about what's going on. I'm talking about not putting in the work, or they're standing in line and, like we talked before, talking about things non-soccer related. Hey, what are we doing after practice? Or do you want to go get McDonald's after this?
Right.
Or they're laughing and giggling hysterically about nothing during the drill. You're not only affecting your play and making the coach upset, you're affecting the entire practice, because now some kids are saying, why isn't she taking this seriously? Some are kind of following them and goofing off themselves, and there's all kinds of things. It becomes a distraction, and it affects the entire practice and the way it flows. And so, again, being locked on, being focused, it's not just game time. You play like you practice.
Absolutely.
And if you're goofing off in practice, you're probably not going to perform well in a game.
And, again, we're talking about those moments in practice where, maybe we're running a transition drill and things have to be quick. Hey, the next group has to be ready to go. And if you and I are standing off the goal chatting, and then our teammate takes off with the ball, and you and I are late getting on, well, now we've thrown the whole drill into chaos.
Right.
Or, we're running a shooting drill, and it's your turn to play the ball. And now my shooter is waiting on you to play the ball because you're not focused in on what we're doing.
Yes.
And, it doesn't seem like a lot, but it's just those little things that just throw off a whole drill.
And to end this, over time, if it continues to happen, your whole team is going to be left behind, because that's multiple practices where you're not building and progressing as a group, individually, as a team. It all matters down the road.
Yeah, definitely. All right, my third one, I love my 2011 girls. They are the most fun ever to coach. But as you guys will hear throughout this, a lot of these are things that they do, and I love them, and they know they love. And this will not, if they're listening, this will not come as a shock to them, because they hear me say it all the time. But again, we are playing U12, and at least 2 or 3 times a game, we get called for a bad throw-in because somebody picks their foot up. Or, we have girls that will just chest pass it onto the field. And that is a U5 skill that you learn.
Yes.
That just runs all over me. And they know it. As soon as they do it, they give me that little, oh, he is not going to be happy. Because it's just, again, we've given up possession of a ball for no reason. And that just drives me insane.
Yeah, especially at the U12 level, that should be instinctual, secondhand. It's not even thinking about it. You're just picking up, and you're just thinking about who's open, where to go, instead of hide my head, drag my foot, follow through, And at a U12 level, that really shouldn't be happening. In fact, at U10, it really shouldn't be happening either.
Yeah, agreed.
U8 and below, you're still learning at that point, but U10 and up, that really should be something that is just second nature to you.
Yeah, and to the referees that are listening to this, if it's ever my team that gets caught, no more of this redo stuff. No, we don't get to redo a bad throw-in. We had a bad throw-in. We lose possession. So I feel like that's going to be the only way they truly learn is, hey, we're down by our goal, and it's a tie game, and we have an opportunity to, do something really cool and score a walk-off goal.
Yep.
And you pick your foot up, we don't deserve a redo in that moment. We deserve to lose the soccer ball. So that is my third one.
So my number 3 here this is more of a game time thing, playing down to a lower team's level of play. And I don't know if this is more of a U10 and below situation because there's a lot of mixing things going on, but U12 and up, there's clearly teams that are better, teams that are average, and teams that are on the lower end. And if your team knows they're going up against a lower level team, they automatically come in saying, I got this game in the bag. We can just tinker around, score 5 goals, call it a day. And then the game gets started, the other team comes out with fire, and we lose possession, and they pop one in the first 10 minutes, and they're saying back, they're like, oh, I guess we should start playing now. You know, it really drives me nuts, and we've dealt with this at the high school age a lot, where you have those egos getting involved, and they know the history of some of these schools. You want to set me off, I see you fooling around in pre-game warm-up, I already know it's going to be a rough first half.
Yeah, and I think this one is so hard for coaches and even for parents that are listening because it's kind of out of our hands. You know, it's we can say, hey, let's get focused. Hey, where are we? Hey, let's get ready. Let's get ready to play. But you're right. You have those pregame things where you know, oh, this is not going to be a good start.
You can see it in their eyes, and you
Yeah.
can see it in the way they're interacting during the warm-up. And just like you said, the coaches can't really change this. You've got to have that leader on the team that you can pull aside and say, yeah, this is garbage right now. If you don't change this, you're not going to like how this game's going to go.
And I would, you know, and I have pulled teams in before at all levels, you know, at the varsity level, at this U12, you know, at the middle school level, I have pulled teams in prior to a kickoff, and I've said, I see what's happening here. You better get it ready. You better get it focused, or this isn't going to be a fun first half.
Yes.
But outside of that, I would love Dunham to turn this topic into a whole podcast episode, because I think it would be a lot of fun to hear the different strategies that coaches or even leaders on the teams, captains, have done when they feel that moment coming on, what, you know, the strategies that they have used. Because me personally, I mean, I've gone to my captains, probably every single player on my team at one point or another, and said, what do I need to do in these moments that I see it that will help us get ready to play? And they kind of give you that blank, I don't know what you're talking about, coach, look. So, I mean, I think it would be a really interesting full podcast to do on not playing down to the level of your opponent.
Yeah, I think it's a good topic to bring up for the future. Absolutely.
All right, my fourth one is, again, kind of sticking with my gameplay theme. It is that moment where we've done some good things in the middle third, or maybe even the defending third, and we've worked the ball up beautifully. We've done some give and goes. You know, we've run an overlap. We've done all these beautiful things. We get the ball wide, which Coach Hamilton loves, and we go to, you know, we're just outside the 18. We're coming down the sideline, and we take that shot, for lack of a better term, that has no possibility of going in, and it goes into the side of the net, and we lose possession. And it's just, you know, it's one of those things. And again, my players know, because I ask a lot of questions of my players. Hey, what should that have been? Like, I should have made a ball. I should have passed it back. It should have been a ball back across the middle instead of me trying to score. Because at that angle, the goalkeeper doesn't even have to be a good goalkeeper to prevent a ball going in the goal from that angle. And I know we just watched a fun World Cup, and we see Mbappe, and we see Messi, and we see all these fantastic players that make shots like that, but we're not them.
Yeah, I think this is a great discussion here. And the fact that you're coaching U12s makes total sense, because a lot of that comes by maturity and experience, knowing the game situation, knowing your positioning. And U12 is kind of that transition from learning to, you know, being a master at the basics of this. And so, you know, U10s, it's going to happen because, you know, they played rec for the first 3 or 4 years of their career, and they were taught to be selfish a little bit. And then you get into U10s, and they're taught, well, let's start working together as a team. And then it's U12 is trying to bring everything together, when to be selfish, when to be team-oriented. And I think this is a great topic here, because if they don't learn that at U12, they're going to start falling behind depending on what position they play in.
Yeah.
Because if they're not finding that other striker in front of the goal, which is where they should be and where the ball should be going, you might be sitting on the bench by U14.
Well, and to your point of that, I've even had discussions with players. Hey, that ball has to go across the middle. And if that far post or that center mid or that second striker, if they're not there, then I'll deal with that. That'll be something we need to do. But, more times than not, when you go back and watch the film, that player's there. And more times than not, that player is wide open. And so just getting that, and again, it goes back to your point of we're getting to that age where it can't be coach all the time anymore. They have to think, okay, where am I on the field? Oh, this ball has to go back towards the PK spot.
I think you brought up a great point here, especially for the U12 and lower. It's important for any coaches that are listening that you're not screaming at your player when this happens. This is a coaching moment, because if you're not coaching them at U10 and U12 how to fix this, it's not going to improve.
Right.
And like I said, U10, U12, that's that transition of where it goes from learning to being a master at knowing the decision-making in those scenarios. So I think you made a great point there. The coaches pull them aside, ask them questions,
absolutely.
See what their mind was, what were they thinking. Were they thinking, I'm just going to go for a goal? Or were they maybe just trying to make a cross and their foot wasn't set? They mishit it. Their body positioning wasn't correct. Asking the questions, being the coach, having that coaching moment goes a long way for that individual player.
Absolutely.
So my number 4 here, game situation here, not performing the tactics or the strategy in games that we practice the previous week or previous weeks. I know you and I have our philosophies are a little bit different, but the idea is always the same. Number 1, you play like you practice, and you work on functional and, patterns in your game that you want to see in the game, whether play through the middle, playing it wide, crosses into the box, whatever it may be. And then you get into the game, you've got 3 kids that are just doing kickball, or they're not making good passes. You're not sure where they're playing it to, or they're trying to force it direct all day long, and you keep saying, we've never done any of this.
Right.
And you want to break down your team's chances in a game. Really, one player can really affect that depending on where they're at. So there's a reason that we work on things in practice, is so you can, number 1, do it in games, but so everyone's on the same page. Everyone knows when left back gets the ball, this striker better be in point A, and center mid better be in point B. And that's just the way it needs to be going.
And I think this goes back to a conversation that we just kind of had, just of that trusting your teammates and trusting your coach. And hey, if we've been running, 1-2, wall passes for both practices that week, and I'm the center mid and I play that ball out wide, and then I stop, and my wing plays it back to me for a 1v1 or a wall pass, then again, it disrupts everything we've done, and it makes the wing frustrated, it makes the coach frustrated, it makes your teammates frustrated, and so it goes back to, can I trust you as a teammate? Can I trust you to being able to execute those things that we've worked so hard on in practice that week?
Yeah, and this is a maturity level of you as an athlete, regardless of age group.
Right.
When you go to practice and you're putting in the work, your brain's going to start putting that into your memory. And if you're not putting the work in practice, you're probably going to cause those problems in games. And number 1, you're probably going to be on the bench. Number 2, you're going to start losing minutes in future games. And number 3, as you guys get older, everybody's going to start passing you up talent-wise.
Right.
And so it's important to understand that we're listening to our coaches when we're doing these practices. We're not just making you do things for no reason. It's to gain experience, to mature you as a player, and develop you to be the best yourself. By the time you get into high school, you want all of that to be developed and all the basics to be mastered. So it's important that you work on these in practice.
Yeah, and I want to bring up a very specific example of that, of this performing the tactics, the strategies in practice, or in a game that you've been working on in practice, because I think it'll help our listeners to kind of visualize exactly what we're talking about here. Something that I'm working on is switching the ball.
Mm-hmm.
When we're on the left wing, playing, dropping that ball back to the left back or even the center back, letting them swing it over to the right side of the field.
Right.
And sometimes that takes a while. Sometimes we can't get that switch right away. Sometimes it has to go from the left wing to the center back out to the left back, back to, and it takes a few passes to get that switch full on. And then we finally get that switch. We finally get that ball to the center back. The center back makes that great turn. They play that ball out there, and your right wing is nowhere to be found because your right wing has come across the field because they think, well, I'm not getting the ball over here at all. This is boring to me. And now all of a sudden we clicked. We finally got that switch, and it's open. There's nobody on that side of the field, including the player that we're trusting to be there. And so I just think those types of things where we're working on them for a reason, we know what we're talking about, and we see things that are going to take us to the next level. So I love that one. That's a really good one.
Absolutely.
All right, my final one, and we'll dive into this a little bit more in a future episode, but this one's hard for me. It's having mom or dad approach me about playing time or approach me about being late. It's hard for me because I'm a U12 coach, and if a player's late, most of the time it's not that player's fault.
It's not.
If they're having issues with playing time, a lot of times at that U12, it's the first time they're having to deal with it. So this one's challenging, I think, but I think there's a great opportunity for parents and parents that are listening, especially for you to help your athlete grow in some maturity here. Hey, you're not happy with your playing time? You go ask coach what's going on. You go ask coach, hey, what can I do to get more playing time? What's going on, and then I totally get it. If a coach doesn't respond the way the athlete expects or however it is, then maybe mom or dad need to get involved. But sometimes as coaches, we feel blindsided by when parents approach us because their athlete's upset. And again, we're not mind readers. If you are on my team and you're upset about anything, you have to let me know.
I think this is one of my favorites that you've brought up here. And, it goes along the lines of everything we've talked about here. It's about maturity, and especially in today's youth soccer where so many parents are overly involved. Right. I think they're forgetting that they have their own teaching moments with their own kids. It's not just about solving all their problems, making everything good and happy, making sure they have a smile on their face. Sometimes they got to deal with some adversity. Sometimes you got to push them to get out of their own comfort zones. And they could be super shy, or maybe they're embarrassed to even talk to the coach about whatever the problem may be. But we need the parents' help to develop their kids in that situation there. Because we're not just teaching them to be soccer players.
Right.
We're teaching them to be adults in the next few years, whatever age group that they're in. But one day they're going to be an adult, and they're probably not going to be a professional athlete in any aspect that may be. But they do need to be some type of responsible, contributing adult that knows how to handle their business. And that's speaking to their boss, speaking to coworkers, dealing with difficult customers. It's no different than talking to your coach at U12 about why am I not getting playing time? Or why'd you sub me off the field on this day?
Yep.
Or why'd you yell at me at practice that one time? They need to be coming to you besides the parent. If the parent was to come there and walk them to the coach and listen, I would love for that to happen.
Absolutely.
But we're taking away the kids' development on how to handle difficult situations by the parent stepping in and fixing everything and pretending that it's not a big deal anymore. Well, it's a massive deal because you've taken away a parent's job of teaching their kids something and the coach's job to also teach them something and the parent along the way as far as soccer goes. So I love this. This is huge. And today's youth soccer, I think that is a massive issue.
I love that point or strategy that you bring up of, hey, if kid is coming home every night upset about playing time or upset about whatever it is, hey, we're going to go talk to coach, but you're going to talk. I will be there to support you. I will stand behind you, but this is the problem that you are having as a player. You need to be the one to address it. I love that thought. And I think, again, as coaches, I feel like I'm pretty easy to approach. I feel like I'm pretty personable with my players. I feel like all my players know that they can come and talk to me about any topic, but that's just what I think. I don't know that. Maybe there is a topic that my players are like, oh yeah, don't go talk to coach about that. So I think that's a great kind of bridge to building that independence. Okay, yes, we are going to go talk to coach about playing time. I'm going to go with you, but you are going to do the talking.
And we could have a whole episode
Yeah.
about this situation here. But the bottom line is open communication.
Yep.
It's open communication with the parents and the player, open communication with the coach and the player, and open communication with the coach and the parent. We should all be working together. These don't need to turn into arguments. If you don't wait till the last day or the last game of the year, the moment you see issues is when you should be talking to your coach. And like I said, we could have a whole episode about this. I love that point there. And, let's just move on or else I'm going to go on another tangent.
Absolutely.
My number 5 here is probably my number 2, my overall 5 here, is lack of work ethic in practice. There's 2 things I'm big on as a coach: respect and work ethic. You better respect me as a coach. You better respect the players on your team, the refs, or the parents, or the players, or there's going to be discussions after that. Number 2 is you better come to practicing games ready to work your butt off.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to come into practice and waste my time, you're wasting the other team's time. And we've seen this at really most levels. You're going to have these type of issues. Some may just not be serious about the game. But you should have that mentality of, I've committed to this for the season. Right. I'm going to come into every practice. I'm going to give everything I've got. I may not be the best at it. I might be awful. I may be the number 1 player. But there should be no reason to not give 100% every game and get better each practice.
Absolutely. And I think that work ethic is something that's hard, especially for younger athletes, because a lot of them, we don't know what that looks like yet. And it does take a good coach, a good leader to say, hey, from 6 to 7, we're going to be busting our butts. And we're going to put everything we have in from 6 to 7. And then at 7, if we've accomplished all we need to accomplish, then we'll play a game of knockout. We'll play a game of World Cup. Those fun games that they love. But you're right. I think having that mindset of when you cross that line, when you step onto that field, whether it's a practice or a game, I know your topic here was really geared at practice, but it's go time. And you got to be ready to put in the work that not only do your coaches expect, but your teammates expect from you as well.
Yeah, one thing that we got to realize here about the players is every player has their own personality. And like you said, it takes a good coach to recognize different personalities, especially at the younger ages. But this is also a situation as far as the parents and how they're involved. Maybe they're hardcore at home. Maybe they're more free will at home. And whatever your parenting technique is, believe it or not, that probably has an effect on how they're going to be on the field. And so that's another thing where it's open communication between the parents and the coaches. Like if a parent knows that their player's a little different, or they're not used to being in groups or working with others, have a conversation with your coach, especially at those younger ages. If the coach understands what he's getting into, he can have a much better game plan coming into practice.
Absolutely. That's a great point. Absolutely. All right. Well, this has been a lot of fun.
I've loved this.
Really, really geared toward players today. And again, we've laughed. We've shared some stories. We've shared some jokes. But this wasn't like, players, stop doing this. But I guarantee you that every player that's listening, we've listed 10 things. I guarantee you that every player listening can grab one of those things and say, oh, yeah, I do that.
Absolutely, 100%.
So I think now you got a little insight into how your coaches are thinking. And I don't think our top 10 would be drastically different from any coach's top 10. So I think looking at hearing these things, it can also be a good, reflection piece saying, okay, am I working hard in practice? Am I that player who when coach goes to put me in, I have to look back and go, hey, what's she playing again? Just fixing these little things. And I don't think either one of us came up, I'm looking back now, I don't think either one of us came up with anything that was like drastic change. But I think if players would really focus on fixing a few of these things, they would be impressed with what their soccer ability would move to.
Yeah, I think another issue here that I want to bring up is if the parents are listening and you see your player doing these things, this is a great opportunity to have these conversations with your kids. We all know that sometimes as kids get older, they don't want to have long conversations with their parents, especially when they get in their teenage years. And it doesn't need to be a criticizing conversation. It needs to be, hey, take a listen to this. Do you see yourself in any of these? And do you see yourself where you could improve in certain situations here? It's really about bringing awareness to the player and the parents and seeing things from a different perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we log off here, would love to hear the listeners, whether you're a parent, whether you're a player, or whether you're a coach. Add on to this conversation for us. There's a couple ways you can do that. When this episode goes live on our YouTube channel, you can comment there. Also, when it goes live, when I post the link on our Facebook page, you can always comment underneath that after you give us a listen. We are still kind of in that social media beginning type phase, so we are still trying to create some better ways for our listeners to be involved in the program and be involved with us. So we are working on that. Thank you for continuing to bear with us. But we would love to hear what you guys are thinking. Things that players do that drive you crazy. And if you are a player, things that a teammate does that drives you crazy. So we'd love to hear about those. Any final thoughts?
No, I think, like I said, it's about open communication. It's about awareness, self-reflection sometimes. But either way, it's all about developing and maturing in your game.
All right, been a lot of fun today, guys. We will talk to you soon. This has been the Bluegrass Soccer Academy. Thank you.